Do you have some tips for focusing in the dark? I find it very difficult to be able to tell if I focus properly before taking the picture. For example, taking pictures of stars and star trails, the screen is black and I can't tell if it's focused. Sometimes it focuses and other times it simply doesn't. I do use a tripod, so it's not a camera shake problem. And you have identified that absolutely correctly. So let me show you here a picture that I took not too, well, I guess it was 2014. I was out in Quebec, and here we had it was at dusk. And this picture, I was trying to photograph, like you were trying to photograph the stars, and I had a hard time focusing. I didn't know how to focus. And so, as you can see there, it's out of focus, and thankfully I was able to play around with it enough to be able to actually get it in focus like this second image. But it got me thinking, what do I do to focus in the dark? And so this is what I have come up with. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to explain it, and potentially I can put together a PDF that will show this in the future, or maybe I'll attach it to this video once it's put on the video library. But at this point I do not have a PowerPoint, and I'm sorry about that, but I can give you this step-by-step process. So pull out your camera, pull out your notebook, and put this down, and we'll see if we can't remember. Okay, most of the time we start with setting the lens to infinity. So here we have, on this particular lens, you can see there's that infinity mark. And what we generally will try to do is set it up right to infinity, like the symbol is over on this side, but the mark there is telling me that infinity is actually when the ring is at that point. So it's about right there. That's where infinity is. Now, infinity focus supposedly is focusing at a point far enough in the distance that everything in the photo will be sharp, like the stars way off in the distance. However, that mark is relative, and sometimes it's very difficult to get it just at the right point. In fact, I experimented with this lens. I went outside and I focused on the distant horizon. I focused on a cloud way off in the distance, and the mark was shifted just a hair to the side of where that infinity mark was. Now, I don't know if that's how it is on all cameras, and it could be that you could trust the infinity mark, but I think there is a better way. Other people do not have marks on their lens. So on this lens right here, this little 50 mil, it does not have an infinity mark. And the ring spins back and forth. I mean, it just spins in one direction and it just goes eternally. And then you can spin it back. It's the focus ring. It doesn't actually have, I cannot tell whether I've been focused to infinity. Something else that people will do is they'll try to use a lens like this that has a focus ring that ends like it doesn't focus perpetually, or doesn't spin perpetually. It has what's called a barrel stop. So this barrel stop, it stops at a point and it can't focus beyond that, and then it comes back and it can't focus over here either, go beyond that. So well, what do? You spin all the way and focus as far away as possible and then let it end at the barrel stop? Is that focused at infinity? Well, most of the time it's focused beyond infinity, and you cannot rely on that either. So here's the 9-step process that I use for focusing in the dark, in the distance, and once you get a hang of it, it takes a few seconds. The first thing I'll do is I'll switch off image stabilizer. So on a lens that has image stabilizer, just switch that switch there to off for image stabilizer, vibration reduction, whatever it's called, depending on the kind of camera you have. That's step number 1. Step number 2 is switch the automatic focus switch to automatic focus. So right above my image stabilizer, it's off here. I'm going to go to the automatic focus switch and turn it to automatic focus. I like to use automatic focus in the dark sometimes. That's what I generally do. Step number 3 is switch the automatic focus area mode to single point. Now this may take a little bit of time to find out how do I change the automatic focus area mode on my camera. And for me, I know from experience now that if I tap the this little button right up here, if I tap that and then tap this button right here, then it changes through the viewfinder the autofocus area mode. In other words, how my focus area works inside the camera, how many of those focus points are working for me. And I want to set it to the single point, dead center. Set the automatic focus area mode to single point, that's step 3, and step 4 is set the single focus point to be dead center. This is the most accurate autofocus area in the camera, especially if you only have 9 focus points, as are in some of the older cameras or less expensive cameras. Step number 5 is to determine your focal length. Frame your shot, set it up. Usually for me it's on a tripod, especially if you're doing night photography like you are. Compose. Am I going to do completely wide angle as possible? I'm going to zoom in a little bit. Determine what your focal length is going to be for your shot. And the reason for that is because after you've focused, if you change the focal distance and your camera's not a Varifocus lens, then it will go out of focus as you zoom the barrel. So just make sure that you have the proper focal length. You've zoomed in to the point that you want. All right. So then number 6 is use automatic focus to focus on a light source that's as far away as possible. And this is the most important part. Use automatic focus to focus on a light source that's far away. So I'll take it off of the tripod, and I'm basically standing in the same location, and I'll find something off in the distance, such as the moon, perhaps a bright star. Without touching the zoom ring, I will focus on that object that is at infinity. If there's no moon out and the stars, I have a hard time focusing on the stars. Well, that's okay. Choose a street lamp that's off in the distance, or maybe the horizon is still light enough that you can focus on the edge of the horizon and the light in the skies that may be there. Okay, so that's number 6. Then number 7 is once you've focused, switch that lens to manual focus. There we go. Number 8, be sure not to bump the focus ring or the zoom ring. And then number 9, shoot a test shot to make sure that it actually is in focus. Okay, so just let me go through that real quick one more time. Switch off image stabilizer, switch the lens to automatic focus, switch the AF area mode to single point, set that single point to dead center, determine your focal length, set up your shot. Use automatic focus to focus on a light source that's as far away as possible. Switch your lens back to manual focus. Be sure not to bump the focus ring or zoom ring, and then shoot a test shot to make sure that it actually is in focus. That's how I do it. And if for some reason you can't latch on to anything, then you can use manual focus. In manual focus, simply switch that switch there on the lens to manual focus, determine the focal length, turn on live view on the back of your camera, and with live view on, zoom in to an area. Let's see, there we go. Zoom in to 10x right there on my camera. I'm zoomed in to 10x, and you can see wherever I'm pointing the camera, it will focus on, or it will show on the screen. And then I can use the manual focus ring to manually focus on a star. You can usually focus on a star, or if you're shooting stars, then you can manually focus on a star, and you can see on the screen that the stars are nice and sharp. So then, of course, shoot a test shot for that as well to make sure it's as sharp as it can be, and I think that is the tips that I have for shooting in the dark. Of course, tripods are necessary. If you need to, you can use a flashlight perhaps to illuminate a distant object if there's absolutely no light anywhere. The problem with that is your flashlight usually doesn't reach to infinity to focus on a distant horizon. You could try potentially using a laser pointer. That can get a little farther, and it may be large enough for your camera to focus on if it's a good lens. And then, of course, there are some pretty advanced things like focus peaking, which is available on more advanced cameras. It'll show you on the live view screen, like highlight alert, it'll kind of blink, or it'll show you what parts of the image are focused with like colors and stuff. So pretty advanced. And if you don't want to shoot in manual focus, then you can use a back button focus. Change your camera to have one of these buttons right here focus for you. And if one of these buttons focus for you and this your shutter release, if that doesn't focus for you, then you can just do the entire process without having to switch the lens out of automatic focus.